Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We are going to get right into this quick 15-minute stretching routine. So before I actually start stretching, I like to roll out my entire body, and hopefully you are doing this stretching routine after a workout or a ballet class and making sure your body is warm enough to stretch. So I start by foam rolling all over. We're starting with our left quad, and we're just getting all the soreness out. Now on to the right side, doing the exact same thing. This is honestly like my favorite part of the stretching routine. Moving on to the IT band. This might be a little painful, but it is definitely necessary. Switching over to the other leg, and we're just gonna roll it out. Now on to the hamstrings. We are just gonna do the same exact thing. I kind of start with rolling out both of them before I start with my individual legs. Now working my way up to my lower back and making sure I get both sides of my hips and my butt because they get super tight. So starting on my left and then working to my right. Now I kind of set the roller right in the middle of my back and kind of just release all of the knots, maybe get a few cracks in there, and just work that roller up my back. Now that we've covered the whole body, it's time to set the roller aside and start stretching. So we're gonna start in a child's pose and just take some deep breaths. I really like to focus on my breathing in my child's pose and kind of getting centered before getting into the deep stretching. So I work my arms to the right to get a side body stretch and do the same on the other side, taking a deep breath in and out. Now we're just gonna walk our arms back to center and take some last breaths before getting into a tabletop position. Now we're gonna get into some cat and cows, and I just like to move freely during these and just do whatever feels good and what my body needs in that moment, and making sure that I'm still focused on my breath and working out any muscle soreness or aches in my back or my hips. Adding a circle to the right, and then reversing it and circling back to the left. And then finding that neutral tabletop before reaching your arm up for a thread the needle. And same to the left, so reaching your arm up and then through and relaxing in the stretch. This should feel really good. Now that we're back in our tabletop, it is time to do our first downward dog. So I kind of like to pedal out my feet, do any movements that feel well, and really going slow and not forcing any stretches in my first downward dog. now gonna walk our feet forward into a ragdoll pose. And I just like to sway side to side, shake my head no, and then roll up one vertebrae at a time. So we're gonna reach up and do a big stretch over to the left. Oh my gosh, Goldie, keep it together. And then do the same thing to the right. Still not pushing any movements in your body. So after that good head roll, we're gonna roll back down, give ourselves a big plie, and roll back up. And this is just the time to check in with your body, see what's hurting, see what feels good, and get in that baby cactus in and back down into a chaturanga. Now that we're in our second down dog, feel free to stretch a little deeper than you did the first time and walk your legs up and reach your right arm up and do the same to the left. Remembering to move slowly and focus on your breath with each movement. And back into our second chaturanga. And yoga people, don't come for me. I don't know proper form. I am just doing what feels good in my body right now. So I reach my right leg up and I open up my hip. I know you're not supposed to do it in yoga, but it just feels really, really good. And I am going to thread it through into a pigeon. So I like to keep my front leg at a 90-degree angle, and it all depends on how deep of a stretch you want to feel in that right hip. If it's a little too intense, you can move your foot back or forward depending on where you are at today. Feel free to do any movements while you're in this pigeon. I like to do a few side stretches, a little head roll before I lay down and focus on the stretch. And now slowly getting up from that pigeon back into a downward dog to release that hip, however it feels good for you. Now walking that leg through into a deep lunge to get ready for our splits. So I kind of like to move through these two movements in my deep lunge and back into a hamstring stretch. Not really staying in either for very long, but it just gives my hamstring time to open up before I go straight into my splits. And now that we've done that a few times, it is time for our right splits. And do not judge these biscuit feet that I have in these splits. We are not focusing on that today. We are focusing on stretching. Thank you very much. So while I'm in my splits, I like to just do whatever feels good in my body. That is a common theme in this video. And now everyone's favorite, middle splits. reaching to the right, and then reaching over to the left. And we are going to do that a few times just to feel that side body stretch. You can either look up to the hand or down to the leg, depending on what feels right in your body. Once we've stretched our sides, it's time to just breathe through the pain that is middle splits. So now that we've done the right splits and middle splits, it's time to do everything to the left. But before that, we are going to go back into a child's pose to reset our body and right back into a downward dog. Your body should be feeling warm and ready at this point, but I still like to go slow and pedal out those feet before I walk them towards my hands. Giving myself a generous plie and focusing on my breath as I roll up vertebrae by vertebrae. Reaching back down and into our chaturanga on this side. Going straight in with that left leg high, and we are going to go knee to nose, back up, and then we will be threading it through to our pigeon just like we did on the first side. Doing those same side body stretches as I did on the first side, but maybe reaching a little further than the first time, depending on where you're at. And constantly reminding myself to check back in with my breath as the stretch gets more intense. Remember when you get out of your pigeon to go slowly and lift that leg up to release that hip before threading it through to the deep lunge. And here we go, prepping for our left splits. I know you're just as excited as I am. And into the splits we go. Fun fact, I'm actually a lefty, so I have spent my entire life working on my right side to get it to the level that my left side is at. So it's not easy, but you just gotta do it. So we are now gonna roll down to our back and bring that right knee into our chest before crossing it over to get that nice back stretch that we all love so much. Now bringing that right leg back to the center and extending it straight and giving yourself some deep plies in between those deep stretches. Now on to the left, where we are going to do the exact same thing. So stretching your knee over before bringing it back to the center for that deep hamstring stretch. guys, I have good news. The deepest stretching is over, and now we get to relax. With this full body stretch, I like to wiggle my ankles, wiggle my toes, and take some deep breaths before getting back up for our final stretches. Crossing that right leg over the left, I'm going to reach over and stretch my neck and just release over my legs. And we are going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And this is the perfect time to check back in with yourself and in with your body to see anything that has released during this stretch, that was tight in the beginning, that might feel a little better at this point, and allowing yourself one more moment to breathe and to focus on yourself before getting off your mat and continuing with whatever you are doing in that day. I really hope you enjoyed this 15-minute stretching routine, and if you haven't already, subscribe, follow me on all the things, and I am so excited to see you next week. Bye, guys.